at a point, I just felt like throwing up.
Wow.
And before I could say, I feel like throwing up, I just started throwing up. Okay. And you know, when you throw up, you use your whole... I just looked down and I saw my intestines, as in literally spilled out.
Oh, God.
It was out so much that I saw one like slipping down, and the nurse grabbed it.
Hi everyone, this is Hanging Out with madebyofresh. So ladies and gentlemen, I told you, I said we'll be dropping these series of videos as I find time to make them. And excitingly today I have with me someone who is really special in this studio. I call her special, and I'm going to be revealing to you later why. And in this world of today, find out that a lot of people don't believe in the miraculous. They think, okay, it's just a cooked up story that some pastors use in church to get people to come to church. But we as Christians, we as believers, we know that God is moving and is doing some really exciting and amazing things. And I'm here today to show you one of such fantastic testimony from my sister and someone very dear to me, just like I said, by the name Temiloluwa Morounkeji.
Hey. Yeah, I'm so excited to know that I'm special. And
you are. Okay, and many people don't know the reason why I call her special. So by introduction, I would like to say that she is the founder of Temi's Love City.
Gang.
Okay, so if you men like me know what that means, many of you don't. So if you don't, go and check her out on Instagram and on Facebook. Temi's Love Clinic is the reason why most of we men are having a fantastic life.
Hallelujah.
So if you don't know what it means, go check it out. All right, I won't say more than that. So you're welcome, my sister.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I know she has a very fantastic story. All right, so without any further ado, let's go.
All right. Thank you. Thank you once again for this opportunity to tell about God's goodness and His faithfulness in my life. And I'm really very grateful to God that I'm alive today. I want to share a story about something that happened 11 years ago. I had my second child on the 30th of June 2011, and it was a cesarean session, but it went on very well. In fact, it was really nicer than my first child, because I had a baby earlier, 2 years before then, and the surgery went on eventful. I was discharged home early and everything was really fine. Until about 3 weeks later, I was having my bath, and I saw like a little lump, pinkish, as in it was really pink. It was the pink color that actually, got my attention. So I was just like, oh, what is this? It was right on the surgery site. So I called my husband and I told him to have a look at it, and jokingly just said, is this not your intestine? I was just like, is your own intestine that, I was just like, what kind of a person are you? And we had a laugh about it, and I told him, okay, let me just call my consultants, and I did. And he was like, oh, come to the hospital, it's good to check it out. I went there, and although he told me he wasn't going to be around, I should see another doctor.
The consultant now.
Yes, the consultant wasn't going to be around, but he told me to see another doctor. And the other doctor checked it out, and then he explained that the site opened up a little bit, and that it's the inner flesh that came out.
That's the pinkish
and
thing.
The pinkish thing. And then so while he was talking to me, he was just asking me questions, I just felt a sharp pain, and before I knew what was happening, I just realized that I was talking to distract me. Then pushed it in and then put a bandage on it and plaster, and told me to come back and see my consultant the following day to know the next course of action. Of course, they did my vitals, and he asked me if I had fever or any other thing, and I said no, that was just fine. and they let me go. And the following day, I went to see my consultants, and they explained that they would just open it up a little bit and resuture that site so that it would be very okay. That and they told me that maybe I've been stressing myself, that what could have made it, opened up. I was just like, really nothing much, except that I've been coughing since I left the hospital, but not any serious cough. So they did what they had to do, as in fact, it was in the theater, I remembered, and it was like, no, it's just a minor surgery, but of course, we still had to go to the theater. It wasn't like I slept off or anything. Okay. It was painless. The procedure was very fast. In less than 10 minutes, I was out. But they actually covered it up and told me to come back for a review 3 days later, and then I should not let water touch it, and I kept to the rules. Yeah. I kept to the rules, and 3 days later, I woke up early in the morning because my husband had to travel to Lagos, so he left as early as 5 a.m. I slept back, and then when I eventually woke up, I noticed that my nightwear was wet on the surgery site. So I took a look at it, and I realized the plaster was wet. And I was just like, well, what's this? But anyways, I was due to see the doctor that same day. So I just ignored it and started doing what I had to do. Then I started feeling very feverish. So I started feeling feverish. And it was at that point, I called my mother-in-law, who happens to be a nurse, but she was retired by then. And she was in the theater all through. And so I told her I was feeling feverish and the plaster site was wet, and then she told me she would come over and see me. That maybe we should go to the hospital earlier. And because I told her my husband wasn't around, she said, okay, she would come. And by the time she would come, I was dripping water. As in, it was not just wet. As I moved, it was just wet, as in dripping. So at that point, I was just tired of the whole thing. Funny enough, I didn't even feel afraid or think anything negative serious was happening. So my mother-in-law came, and she told me she wanted to check the place. So she opened up the plaster, and then she said in Yoruba, "Satani ori e baje, Satani ori e buru." I was just like, I was laughing. I was giggling, actually. I was like, Mommy, what's your own with Satan? That, this, I just felt, Mommy, she's getting whatever it is. And she said, call your consultant, I need to speak to him. So at that point, I knew, okay, maybe something serious at that point. Yeah. So I called my consultants, handed over the phone to my mother-in-law, and they spoke medical jargons. I heard broke down. Okay, I was like, okay, the surgery site had opened again. So she said we have to go to the hospital. So we got to the hospital. The consultant was actually waiting for us, and so I was in the consulting room, and I was on the examination table. And my consultant he saw it, he opened the plaster and then started asking me questions. What happened? Any event? Did I carry everything? I guess he was just trying to see why the breakdown again. What I didn't realize was that when my mother-in-law opened it up, a large pattern, actually, as in something really, she saw something bulging out. And so it wasn't just that little, he had really opened up. And then something, she said she couldn't figure it out, but it was just something in the internal was out already. And that was why it was wet and was dripping water. So my consultant was just asking questions, and someone was taking my vitals on the other arm. And at a point, I just felt like throwing up. And before I could say, I feel like throwing up, I just started throwing up. And when you throw up, you use your whole... I just looked down and I saw my intestine, as in literally spilled out. It was out so much that I saw one like slipping slipping down, and the nurse grabbed it and packed it up. It was slippery, definitely. So it says it was just crazy. Within a twinkle of an eye, so many things were happening. Instructions here and there, the consultant talking to the doctor, the nurses, everywhere was confusion. I kept asking, is that my intestine? Is this my intestine? Doctor, will I be okay? So many questions. And yes, the doctor kept saying, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. And then I heard xylocaine. It was explaining something to me that they had to do a surgery. And I was wondering, surgery where? In a consult, I'm a social worker, so I understand a bit of medical stuff, and surgery babu, you are not in the theater. And he couldn't even answer all my questions, and they brought out, I heard when he said xylocaine was what was available. I knew what xylocaine was, as in something to just deaden the flesh for when you want to suture a small wound or something. Yeah. Of course, I was given the xylocaine, and in like 5, initially I wasn't feeling the pain. It was working on me, but after a few minutes, the thing wore out, and I started feeling pain. As in, you know when you are in pain and there are tears flowing. Wow. That's when I realized that's emotional pain. I had a taste of what Jesus went through. Wow. In the Garden of Gethsemane. I'm sure it's just that I was sweating blood inside. It was an agony. Wow. I was groaning, screaming, shouting for every needle, for every scalpel, whatever they were doing. It was horrible. At a point, I heard a clear voice telling me, Temi, you can't make this. Who sees their intestine and leave? Just end it and say Motiku. The voice instructed me in Yoruba language. Motiku. That's all you need to say, and you'll feel this pain no more. And I could only reason with it. And so at that very point, when I wanted to declare that Motiku, I am dead, I noticed a hand on me. I looked up and I saw the nurse that was at my feet had moved to my head, laid her hands on me, and was speaking life. She was actually speaking scriptures, but I can't remember the exact scriptures. But for every word, literally now, there was just this calmness, like something else taking over. As in, of course, she wasn't speaking it so loud like Krabashe. She was just, talking to me. And for everything she said, it was drowning the other voice that was so prominent and kept saying, you are dead. Yes. So for our own voice was just silencing the voice of the enemy. Wow. Was I feeling the pain? Yes, absolutely. I was feeling the pain, but I could bear it. As in, I think I just understood what happened with the 3 Hebrew children when they were in the furnace of fire. Was the fire burning? Yes. Even the people that threw them to the fire, they didn't even stay close, but they were consumed. So it wasn't like the fire wasn't burning, but they had they couldn't feel the effect anymore. That was exactly what I started experiencing. The pain was there, but I could just bear it, and it had no effect on my spirit man anymore. It was just on my body. And after like endless, it felt like hours, but the doctors were like, it wasn't up to 30 minutes. It wasn't, but it felt like hours. I just realized they all started clapping, and I was like, oh, are you done? The doctor said, yes, I'm done. You are fine. The next thing I saw was I saw myself at the door. I jumped down. And I wanted to escape from them. They grabbed me and put me over. As they see this one, we just
You
finished.
know the gravity of what was happening there.
And you know, of course, infection. They had to, when the doctor was explaining later on that part that came out was part of my intestine, and it was already infected. They couldn't just even explain what happened. Several antibiotics later on. I was discharged, I think, the 4th day. I was discharged the 4th day, but I remember that the doctors were like, they're not taking any chances. There is no cosmetic surgery. That the nurse was telling the other nurse that the doctor became Suradi Taylor. They still did that. What will break up again? That this time, even the devil cannot break this
anymore.
And do you know the fantastic part of this? What makes it so supernatural? God as in, this is just all about Jehovah Rohi, the Lord that sees me. He has seen ahead. That nurse was not on duty.
Wow.
She was not on duty. She was on night duty, and that was like 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Wow.
She said something just told her to go to work. She had no business at work at that time. But something in the inside of her could not just let her sit down at home.
At home, enjoying her life.
The God Almighty that has seen my affliction ahead knew He had to provide someone that my destiny helper just had to be there to help me when I was weak. In the moment of my weakness, He needed someone that would raise the hand of Moses. And God, we had to. It was just supernatural. It could only be God. And the doctor was saying it's either he was courageous and had to do something immediately, and that was a risk too.
It was.
He took a risk in faith.
Yes.
Because if anything went wrong, he wasn't the theater. As in, he just
the environment, the situation.
He needed to make a decision at that time, and thank God he made the decision not to wait for anyone.
Thank God he was the consultant.
That's another miracle. Thank God he was this consultant. He's a surgeon, and not just a medical officer or
someone who is new, just trying to.
Everything just works together for good.
Wow. So, what was the role your mother-in-law played apart from bringing you?
Okay, when we got to the hospital, my mother-in-law could not. They won't allow her going to the examination table. Of course, I had a baby. Remember, my baby is less than a month. It wasn't a month old, so she held the baby outside. So she said when I started screaming, she was wondering what's going on. As in, there was nobody she could ask. So she just held the baby and started praying. She said she just started praying, and she told God that this girl's husband is in Lagos. She left her alive. He's coming back to meet her alive. I don't know what is going on in the inside of that room, but Lord, you can see. Take over. So all she could do was pray. She said she kept telling God that this girl's husband left her alive. He must come back to meet her alive, and she started telling God that I don't know what's going on in the inside of that room, but you do, and take over. And she kept telling the devil that you've lost this battle. As in, she said it was like a challenge. The devil, you have lost. Take your hand off my daughter.
Wow. Honestly, I don't know what to say anymore. I mean, I know a little of this story, but I've never had the opportunity to hear the whole thing.
The full
like
story,
this.
yeah.
Wow. This is very obvious. No wonder. I mean, you couldn't have gone. What would be our fate?
Mercy said no.
Mercy said no. Hallelujah. So,
glory to Jesus.
You've heard it all, everyone, and this is an amazing testimony. Don't let anyone tell you that God is not working, because He is. A whole lot that God is doing among us as His children. And I also want to say this as a means of encouragement to everyone. You see, that tiny, small voice that is speaking to you has a reason for it. If that doctor, if that nurse had not listened to the still small voice and come over to the hospital, what would we have said?
Exactly.
So many times, the Spirit of God is going to be ministering to you, taking you out of your comfort. Yes,
that's it.
But it's for someone.
Yes.
It's for someone. So we need to cultivate the attitude of, okay,
Obedience.
you said it, I'm obeying you, I'm going for it irrespective of what. And you see, when God is actually also leading you to pray for people, you better do it. Okay, so in the middle of all of this, what role did your husband play?
Oh, okay. First of all, he wasn't even around. He was oblivious of everything. By the time he got back home, my house help told him that I had gone to the hospital, that grandma came and took me to the hospital. So yes, he remembered that I had an appointment, but he was just like, okay, so why are they not back at that time? So his phone was already dead, so he couldn't, because he got home really late. And so by the time he charged the phone and called my mother, and that one just said, okay, just come. So that particular day, the 22nd of July 2011, he had no clue of what the whole drama that happened. But guess what? While I was still pregnant, like my early trimester, he said he had a dream that I died. Wow. And he took time out to pray. But he never told me about it. He said he prayed until he had that peace, and he had that, conviction in the inside of him that, oh, she's going to leave. Wow. So that's another reason why it's very important to be very sensitive. And then when God shows you things, or you get an instruction, whether through dream or any other means, you just don't do nothing about it. You take an action, because your obedience could actually be tied to someone else's survival.
Wow. You've heard that, man. It's not only men that should be saying that my wife should be the one to pray for me. You too, you should be in that space of walk with God, that you can discern and you can know what is about to come. So, wow. I look at you with another
Glory
eye.
to Jesus. I'm a miracle. Yes, if you don't know what to thank God for, you can always thank God for me.
Hallelujah.
Glory to Jesus.
So that will be it on Hanging Out with Madebyofresh this episode. Thank you so much, Mrs. Temiloluwa Morounkeji.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. I know I really drilled you a lot. It took a lot for you to be here today. So thank you. I'm grateful. And that will be it on Hanging Out with Madebyofresh today. And I'm trusting God for another juicy story. Do you have a juicy story around you? Hook me up. I'd like to share. I'd like to put it on my show so some people can see it and be blessed. And I want you to know that whatever it is that you're going through, God is there in the midst of it. God is in the midst of it. All you just need to do is to trust and obey the instructions that He gives to you. So that'll be it, and catch you in the next one.